It's impossible to overstate the importance of AI. It is possible to overstate where we are in the cycle. We've just gone through this ridiculous acceleration phase, and we will probably end up with a bubble, which will probably unwind. But still, like crypto, the adoption of this thing is absolute and total, and it drives what we talked about before, the roaring 20s and a renaissance, because it's going to unlock enormous amounts of power from people, businesses, and who knows what else.
Bitcoin, BTC, spent much of Thursday quietly hovering a little below $29,000, roughly where it stood for much of the past 10 days, as investors weighed U.S. and European central bank interest rate increases and the latest debacles in a mushrooming bank crisis. Hello and welcome to Money Talks. In today's video, Raoul updates us about Bitcoin's current market standing, the crypto future adoption, and his prediction for 2023.
To understand this, I've been involved in this market since 2013 when I first saw Bitcoin. I wrote the first ever macroeconomic strategy paper and valuation for Bitcoin. So I've been all over this space. And the one thing when I wrote that first article is you need a 10-year time horizon. Everything else is done. And if you are worried about these cycles, you are trading it wrong. You're trading and not investing in the adoption of a network. Right. So how does crypto work? Crypto is driven by two things. It's really simple. Network adoption, which is Metcalfe's law. So that's the number of active users plus basically the number of connections or applications for those users. That is what drives the long-term trend. The log trend of Bitcoin over time is the best performing asset of all recorded history, and it remains so in every single up business cycle. There is no asset that's ever performed as well. But it is cyclical, driven by the money supply and the liquidity side.
And the emotions.
And that's what brings it down 70 or 80%. So everyone goes, well, it comes down 70, 80%. You've got to remember that if I'm just looking at the Bitcoin chart now, the low in 2015 was $200. Right. Then it went all the way up to $20,000. And then it corrected down to $2,800. All the lows are massively higher and the highs are massively higher.
Yep.
So if you just step back and say, oh, I bought crypto and it fell, hold it. Your time horizon cannot be 3 years. Your time horizon needs to be long enough for the network adoption model to work. And the best way of doing that is just using a log chart and looking at it within that. And it's a very smooth uptrend.
Right.
And then what you do is you learn to use the down cycle, the liquidity cycle, to add to your investment over time, much like you would have done with Amazon, or you would have done with Google, or you would have done with Microsoft. They're very similar models. I don't think Bitcoin will be a payment system except using the Lightning layer for moving dollars around. So it's fine for that. It's fine if you're PayPal and you're in the monetary system because you give people a different product to use. But nobody wants to be the Bitcoin pizza guy and buy, a couple of books on Amazon for Bitcoin and then realize because the Bitcoin goes up too much over time.
Volatile.
So
yeah.
It's too volatile to do that with. So I know it seems fancy. There is a Bitcoin and ETH economy, and you can get a share of that economy. That economy can do very well. So, we take payments in ETH or Bitcoin or whatever at Real Vision. That's fine. Some people want to do that because they've accumulated a lot of capital in those particular assets. But generally speaking, it's a bit of a red herring, I think, for that. Ethereum itself is becoming the payment system of the internet. It's very interesting because it is a base currency of which we quote things like NFTs in ETH itself. I've never seen that in my life.
Ether, ETH, the second largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization, followed a similar pattern and was changing hands around $1,877, down 0.6% from Wednesday, the same time. Prices of major cryptos moved a little over the course of the day. Stocks of several regional banks tanked, including those of Los Angeles-based PacWest Bancorp, PACW, dropping 50% Thursday afternoon, and Phoenix-based Western Alliance Bancorporation, WAL, falling 38%. Investors fretted over bank sector contagion, which began in mid-March with the collapse of three banks, including Silicon Valley, SVB, and Signature. In bond markets, the note on the 2-year Treasury yield, a gauge of near-term interest rate expectations, fell 15 basis points to 3.78%, close to its lowest mark this year. The 10-year Treasury yield also slid roughly 2 basis points to sit around 3.37%. The financial crisis that we seem to be sleepwalking into will almost certainly become real. Banks will struggle even more now given that the yield curves are so incredibly inverted. And ultimately, this will likely force the U.S. Federal Reserve into urgent rate cuts and a return to something akin to quantitative easing, or else the economy and the banking itself will be in deep, deep trouble.
My big thesis on crypto is, I've started two companies. One is Exponential Age Asset Management. That's for investors to invest in digital asset hedge funds and other vehicles to get exposure to the space. So the financialization of the crypto markets, whether it's family offices, high net worth investors, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, all of that. Sound Magic Studios was the other side of that equation, which is I look at a lot of Web3 and it's being built from the grounds up, and they're all experiments. Some will fail, some will work. Great. But when I look at what Web3 does, it enables a bunch of really, really big intangibles on a balance sheet. Culture, brand, community, to become tangibles via tokenization. So I always use the example of Disney. Disney probably has the largest cultural brand on earth now. Yeah, it might have been Coca-Cola in the 60s, but it's not now. It's Disney. What is Disney's brand, community, and culture worth? $1 trillion? $2 trillion? It's worth a lot more than the company is. Now, it's not realizable, but when you tokenize it, it creates that. Science Magic Studios' mission is to tokenize culture, these large cultural communities. Music, right? Music is one of the biggest cultural phenomena of human activity. Sports, gigantic. Fashion, gigantic. And then on top of that, entertainment, whether it's film franchises, book, TV, all of these things have cultural currency that can be tokenized. So the idea of that, we built an amazing team with some incredible advisors to go and talk the talk that needs to happen at boardrooms, not by a bunch of, crypto heads with hoodies, but serious people to go in there and explain how we can unlock massive trapped value for these massive communities and drive forward this whole space.
So, what are your thoughts about Raoul Pal's prediction? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.